Hello viewers, today we are going to deal with the resources forest and air, which is a part of ecology and environment. We have already discussed land and water. Today we are going to focus on the other two resources, forest and air. We all are aware that environment is comprised of various natural resources like forest, air, water, minerals, etc. All these resources are important as we get food from forests and grasslands. From the past, people are mainly dependent on the forest for their food and livelihood. So, as the population increased, the need on the forest resources also increased, which depleted the forest day by day. This has led to the ecological imbalances, which in turn increased the temperature in the surroundings and finally led to global warming. There are many sources of pollution which emit different pollutants into the air that cause harmful to the life and living beings. We begin with the meaning and utility of forest. Forest, as we all know, is a large area of land covered with trees and undergrowth or woody vegetation. It also means dense growth of trees, plants and underbrush covering a large area. Forest is something that resembles a large dense growth of trees in terms of density, quantity and profusion. Coming to the utility of forest. Forest has been important from the very beginning of human civilization. People began life on this planet as forest dwellers. They were food gatherers and depended on the forest for all their needs, like clothes, food, shelter. They gradually became food growers. Clearing a small patch in the forest, they started to grow food. But they continued to depend on forests to meet a lot of their other needs. Even today, people depend on the forest for paper, timber, fuel wood, etc. as they are the source of energy for cooking and heating, medicine and fodder for cattle and other grazing animals in the hilly and arid regions and during drought. Forests provide a suitable habitat for a number of important plant and animal species, and this helps in maintaining a broad genetic base from which future strains of species can be developed. Forests also have aesthetic values and serve as tourist attractions. Moving on to the forest resources. Forests constitute important renewable natural resource components of our environment and economy. Besides economy, forests check air pollution and soil erosion. Forest ecosystem is dominated by trees, the species varying in different parts of the world. The chief products which forests supply is wood, which is used as fuel, raw materials, new materials for various industries as pulp, paper, plywood, timber for furniture items. They also produce minor forest products like canes, gum, resins, dyes, tannins, etc. Forests shape natural environment by influencing factors such as temperature, humidity, and precipitation. In addition, forests also shape the soil environment by affecting its composition, structure, chemical properties, water contents, and play an important role in geochemical cycles of water. Carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, phosphorus, and a number of other elements as well. Forest resources are subject to changes because of variations in their growth, harvest, and land use conversions. Changing of forest resources can significantly influence the environment on which future performance of these resources depends. Excessive harvesting of forest resources affects the environment of the forest which leads to the changes in the climate or other elements of the environment. Rapid increase in the deforestation and fossil fuel combustion has been considered to affect largely the forest resources. Now we move on to deforestation, its impact and forest conservation. Destruction of biotic potential of land leads to desertification. The devastating effects of deforestation in India include soil, water and wind erosions. Deforestation has a major impact on the productivity of our croplands. This happens in two ways. Number one, soil erosion increases manifolds and the soil actually gets washed away, leading to an accentuated cycle of floods and drought. 2. Equally important is the impact of the storage of firewood on the productivity of our croplands. After denudation of our Himalayas, the process of deforestation started in the Shivalik range. Shivali sal forests were overexploited for industrial use. When forests die, ecological balance maintained by nature breaks away and floods or drought is the terrible consequence of these. Deforestation is caused by different reasons like overgrazing by animals, indiscriminate felling of trees, improvement in the industrialization, growing hunger in the population. In the modern world, cutting down trees is considered to be one of the major causes for global warming. Deforestation is harming the environment and posing huge environmental threats. But no one is cutting down forests for the joy of destroying them. Due to deforestation, the temperature in the environment has increased, which has led to global warming, which is, of course, a very serious problem. The role of forests in the national economy and in ecology was further emphasized in the 1988 National Forest Policy, which focused on ensuring environmental stability, restoring the ecological balance, and preserving the remaining forests. Other objectives of the policy were meeting the need for fuel food, fodder, and small timber for rural and tribal people, while recognizing the need to actively involve local people in the management of forest resources. Also in 1988, the Forest Conservation Act of 1980 was amended to facilitate stricter conservation measures. A new target was to increase the forest cover to 33% of India's land area from the then official estimate of 23%. In June 1990, the central government adopted resolutions that combined forest science with social forestry, that is, taking the socio-cultural traditions of the local people into consideration. Annual fellings at about 4 times the growth rate are a major cause. Widespread pilfering by villagers for firewood and fodder also represent a major decrement. Between 1990 and 2010, as evidenced by satellite data, India has reversed the deforestation trend. FAO reports India's rate of forest addition has increased in the recent years, and as of 2010, it is the 3rd fastest in the world in increasing forest cover. The 2009 Indian National Forest Policy document emphasizes the need to combine India's effort at forest conservation with sustainable forest management. Chipko movement. Now, it was a unique movement born in a small hilly village of Uttar Pradesh. Chipko means to embrace, that is the movement. The CHIPCO movement is the result of hundreds of decentralized and locally autonomous initiatives. Prominent CHIPCO figures include Sundarlal Bahuguna, a Gandhian activist and philosopher, whose appeal to Mrs. Gandhi results in the green felling ban and whose 5,000-kilometer trans-Himalayan foot march in 1981 and 83 was crucial in spreading the CHIPCO message. Bahuguna coined the CHIPCO slogan, that is, ecology is permanent economy. That was his slogan. The CHIPCO's plan is in fact a slogan of planting 5 F's. What are they? Food, fodder, fuel, fiber and fertilizer. Trees to make communities self-sufficient in all their basic needs. In other parts of the country also, tribals inspired by this movement have raised their voice against destruction of trees. Moving on to air composition and uses of air. Air is the mixture with varying amounts of moisture and particulate matter enveloping the earth, the atmosphere. Air composition. The air in our atmosphere is composed of molecules of different gases. The most common gases are nitrogen, which comprises to 78%, oxygen about 21% and argon about 1%. Other molecules are present in the atmosphere as well, but in very small quantities. Air supplies us with oxygen, which is essential for our bodies to function and live. Plants and animals also need air for their survival. Every living creature on earth is in need of air for its own survival. The air which we breathe in is a mixture of nitrogen, oxygen, water vapor, inert gases, carbon dioxide, hydrogen, methane, nitrous oxide, etc. Of these, the first 4 constitute altogether 99.9% of the air. The rest are found in trace amount. Human activities can release substances, that is, pollutants, into the air, some of which can deteriorate the quality of air and cause problems to humans, plants and animals. Air is important for animals to breathe. Carbon dioxide helps plants in the process of photosynthesis or the preparation of food. Moving on to air pollution and its pollutants. One of the formal definitions of air pollution is as follows. The presence of one or more contaminants in the atmosphere as such quality and duration is injurious or tends to be injurious to human health or welfare, animal or plant life. Air pollution is caused by the discharge of harmful substances. Some natural sources such as volcanic activities, dust storms, forest fire, etc. also contribute to air pollution. The amounts of air pollutants vary at different locations and at different times of the day. Different days of the week and weeks of the year depending on special and temporal activities of the sources. Air pollution affects human health, agricultural productivity, transport system and our cultural assets like monuments and historical buildings. Let us look at the types of air pollution. Air pollutants can be considered in following 2 major categories: the particulate matter and the gaseous matter. Suspended particulate matter, that is SPM. One type of air pollution is the release of particles into air from burning fuel for energy. SPM consists of solids in the air in the form of smoke, dust and vapor that can remain suspended for extended periods and is also the main source of haze which reduces visibility. Airborne particulate matter is a very diverse material in terms of its physical and chemical properties, and there are many sources which contribute to atmospheric concentrations. The finer of these airborne particles, when breathed in, can lodge in our lungs and cause lung damage and respiratory problems. The smallest particles have the greatest potential of impact on human health because of their ability to be inhaled deeply into the lungs. Gaseous matter. Gaseous pollution is caused by the burning of fuels, smoking, cooking and off-gassing from unstable materials, cellulose nitrate film, paint finishes, fire retardant coatings and adhesives may also produce harmful gaseous pollutants. Wood, particularly oak, birch and beech, emit acetic and other acids, and vulcanized rubber releases volatile sulfides that are especially damaging to photographs. Moving on to air pollutants, particulate pollutants. To begin with, silica. Silica or silicon dioxide SiO2 and silicates constitute the major portion of all rocks and their products such as soils, sands and callus. Silica occurs in either its free form or a combined state called silicate. Breathing of tiny particles of free silica causes silicosis, a disease of respiratory system. Asbestos. Asbestos is an incombustible chemical resistant, fibrous material used for fireproofing materials as well as insulation, building materials, brake linings, etc. Asbestos fibers in the ambient air pose a risk to human health in the form of cancer and other diseases. Then we have lead. Automobiles running on petrol mixed with lead are the main sources of lead in air and reach to human, plants and animals. Lead is present in diesel, lead batteries, paints, hair dye products, etc. and contribute to particulate pollution. Lead can cause nervous system damage, digestive problems, anemia and in some cases can also lead to cancer. The young and the elderly people are most susceptible to the harmful effects of lead. Then we have mercury. Reactive inorganic mercury is emitted into the atmosphere from various sources and then deposited on the Earth's surface. Some of the deposited mercury ends up in wetlands, lakes and streams where bacteria convert it into methyl mercury, a toxic form that builds up in the tissues of animals at each link in the food chain. In some cases, mercury accumulates in fish to levels that would be toxic if eaten by humans over a prolonged period of time. Gaseous pollutants. Another type of pollution is the release of noxious gases such as sulfur oxides, carbon monoxide, nitrogen oxides and chemical vapors, etc. These can take part in further chemical reactions once they are into atmosphere, forming smog, acid rain and various secondary pollutants such as ozone peroxyacyl nitrate, that is PAN, aldehydes and ketones. Sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide is a gas produced from burning coal, mainly in thermal power plants. Some industrial processes such as phosphate industry, production of paper and smelting of metals produce sulfur dioxide. Sulfur dioxide is a major contributor to smog and acid rain. It is an acid gas and can affect human health and vegetation. Carbon monoxide, CO. Carbon monoxide is a colorless odorless gas that is produced by the incomplete burning of carbon-based fuels including coal, petrol, diesel and wood. Carbon monoxide is produced primarily in motor vehicles. Carbon monoxide reduces the capacity of the blood to carry oxygen and deliver it to the tissues. It can slow our reflexes and make us confused and sleepy. It can reduce a person's ability to think clearly and causes visual impairment and headaches. CO, that is carbon monoxide, can cause even death if high enough concentration is inhaled for a long time. Then nitrogen oxide. Nitrogen oxide is the major component of oxides of nitrogen. It is produced when fuel is burned in motor vehicles, power plants, industrial boilers and other sources. NOx can make children susceptible to respiratory diseases during winters. Ozone, that is O3. Ozone occurs naturally in the upper layers of the atmosphere. This important gas shields the earth from the harmful ultraviolet rays of the sun. However, at the ground level, it is a pollutant with highly toxic effects. Pollutants emitted by vehicles and industries are the major source of ground level ozone emissions. It makes our eyes itch, burn and water. It also causes damage to vegetation. At high concentrations, brown or white flecking often appears on the leaves. At lower concentrations, plant growth may be reduced without any visible damage. Then we have hydrocarbons. Hydrocarbons are compounds composed of hydrogen and carbon. The most important anthropogenic source is the automobile. HCs, that is hydrocarbons, have various direct adverse effects on plants and animals, including human beings. They may be converted into harmful compounds through complex chemical reactions continuously occurring in the atmosphere. We move on to hydrogen sulfide. Hydrogen sulfide is highly toxic and corrosive gas, easily identified by its characteristic rotten egg odor. HS, that is hydrogen sulfide, is produced from natural sources such as geysers, swamps and bogs, as well as from human sources such as petroleum processing and refining and metal smelting. The potential effects of HS include direct toxicity leading to functional disorders in animals and plants. Then we have radon. Radon 222 is a naturally occurring radioactive gas which comes out of the ground. In the open air, it is dispersed, but it can accumulate in buildings. The gas decays into minute solid particles which, if breathed in, can be deposited on the surface of the lungs and increases the risk of lung cancer. Looking at these, we move on to the other gaseous pollutants. There are many other pollutants for which safe levels in the outdoor air have not been determined. These include ammonia NH3, hydrogen chloride HCl and hydrogen fluoride HF, persistent organic pollutants, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, polychlorinated biphenyls, chlorofluorocarbons and the volatile organic compounds. Some of these react in atmosphere and from secondary pollutants such as ozone, metals and sulfate particles, etc. Some of these affect our health, others affect our ecosystems, causing acid rain, global warming and other problems on a regional and international scale. Sources of air pollution. Air pollutants are emitted into the atmosphere from stationary, area and mobile sources. Stationary sources include utility, industrial, institutional and commercial facilities. Examples: thermal power plants, chemical plants, pulp and paper factories and municipal waste, etc. Area sources include many individually small activities such as petrol or diesel service stations, small paint shops, consumer solvent use and open burning associated with agriculture and forest management activities. Mobile sources include automobile, ships and aeroplanes. Man-made sources: large-sized industries and thermal power plants. Small-scale industries and transport sectors are major sources of air pollution. Besides transport and industrial sectors, the domestic and commercial sectors also contribute to the overall pollution load in urban areas. Other sources of air pollution include the use of generators, waste burning, construction activities and roadside airborne dust due to vehicular movement and industries like cement, steel, refineries, petrochemicals and mines. Natural sources. Air pollution also results from a variety of natural causes, not all of which are within human control. Dust storms in desert areas and smoke from forest fires and grass fires contribute to gaseous particulate pollution of air. The source of pollution may be felt elsewhere. Volcanic activity is another important natural source of air pollution. Active volcano pours great amounts of ash and toxic fumes into the atmosphere and lead to the deterioration of air quality. Effects of air pollution. Air pollution is a major cause of acid rain, ozone layer depletion and injures respiratory system, causes acute bronchitis, gastroenteritis, cardiovascular illnesses, risks of cancer, etc. The most satisfactory long-term solutions to air pollution may well be the elimination of fossil fuels and the ultimate replacement of the internal combustion engine. Hence, it is every individual's responsibility to protect our natural resources for betterment of life by planting trees, reducing the use of fossil fuels, conversion to cleaner fuels, etc. Hope you are clear with the topic. Thank you.